BigAl podcast with your host, Al Bishop, unfiltered and uncut.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm joined today by a different corner of the MMA fraternity, if we can say that. It's Joseph from Ravonia Sports Medical and Therapy. Welcome to the show, man, and thanks for coming through.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's see if we can break this down and simulate the connection between yourself and the MMA world. Basically, how I got into contact with you guys was constantly seeing social media updates from some of the biggest fighters in the country, Martin van Staden, Chad Hanekom, guys that use your services, and those services in particular is HyperBaric chambers. And like we discussed briefly off air, what I felt was trying to create a bit of awareness, education, and show people, HyperBaric chambers are in South Africa. They do exist and you can access them. What they are, what they do, who could use them, and so on. Obviously, with topics like this, it's a interesting one for me because it's something I'm quite attracted to understand better what's happening, So let's maybe start there, Joseph, if you don't mind. Basically, what it is that you do with MMA athletes and how they benefit from what you do.
100%. So what we actually do, we are the sole distributors and service providers of a company based in Argentina.
Okay.
It's called BioBarica. It's an international network of what is called or known as mild hyperbaric therapy. The reason that I say mild is, as I'll discuss further along, there's 3 types of chambers that are outside in the world and one can have access to. And what we do is the middle type of pressure. Hyperbaric therapy is not something new. It goes back to probably the 1600s.
Okay.
But it was mostly used and known for diving diseases. So Ben's disease or deep sea diving sickness. So when you go down and you're diving and you come up quite fast, then you get some bubbles in the joints, and that's what's called Ben's disease, and you can die off of it. But then about 6 years ago, this company took out the first chambers of mild hyperbarics, and essentially the difference of it only lies on the risks and the pressure involved. So we go only up to 1.4 atmospheres of pressure, which is basically 4 meters below sea level. And what do I mean about pressure? So the whole therapy consists of the person or persons, depending if it's a one monoplace or multiplace chamber, goes inside that chamber, which is sealed, and we pressurize it to different levels. Like I said, we only do 1.4 atmospheres. At the same time, they receive oxygen, pure oxygen or oxygen enriched air. And the combination of these two, let's say, ingredients creates a condition in the body called hyperoxia. And just to explain a little bit how hyperoxia works is the human body is designed to carry oxygen through the red blood cells. But if you come to think about it, your veins and vessels are only a certain diameter. So only a certain amount of red blood cells can move through that space in a certain time. Now, what we do with the pressure is we're compressing those red blood cells that are containing oxygen. So now more red blood cells can move through the system in that 1 hour that you're inside the chamber and at a quicker rate. The oxygen enriched air or pure oxygen, depending on the chamber, gives you more oxygen, which the red blood cells cannot contain. So they dump them into the water and the plasma in your body. That because of the pressure, it's still moving at a quicker rate. So depending on the chamber, you get 7 to 11 times more oxygen running through your body. And what that causes is it's not only your main organs that are getting oxygen, but the, let's say, diseased cells or dead cells or broken bones, muscles, whatever it is getting oxygen as well without the need of it to go through the entire, system, breathing it, the lungs, etc., etc. So that's what causes the healing and the recovery. What's also important to note is that unfortunately, currently, in the air, at an average, we only have 21% oxygen. The rest of the air that we breathe is
bad news.
Bad news, yeah. It's just junk in the air.
Sure.
So obviously, inside the chamber with pure air, it's doing what we were designed by God to do, which is breathe.
Sure.
What we need to breathe, and not the junk in the air.
Okay. So, with that in mind, what are the direct benefits for an athlete to absorb more oxygen at a higher rate? What is the immediate? You mentioned something in there. You said broken bones, which is, I can't remember who it was. It was a rugby player or a soccer player, someone like that, who had a broken leg, and they were showing pictures. I remember seeing it quite clearly of someone in like an oxygen tent back then, and I couldn't quite put my finger on the connection between the oxygen and broken bones, and maybe you can just give us an idea of how that all works.
So it's like I mentioned now, broken bone is essentially broken cells.
Sure.
Dead cells or non-existent cells in that broken piece. So what the oxygen does is recreate or regenerate those broken cells, which causes the joining again of the broken bone, the muscle, the torn ligament, or whatever. It's so simple, yet people think it's such a rocket science.
Sure.
But essentially, it's regenerating dead cells. That's what we are doing.
Okay. And is it fair to say from there that oxygen is assisting in all of that? It's just that pure concentrated oxygen that's really assisting.
Correct.
With that.
Oxygen is, if you come and think about it, most of all, not only in sportsmanship, but in general, take cancer, for example. There is secondary causes of cancer, which is, smoking or detergents or whatever chemicals that we are exposed to. But the primary cause of cancer, and this was discovered by a German physicist his name was Otto Warburg, and he discovered that the primary cause of cancer is just a lack of oxygen in those cells. What happens? Cells feed off of oxygen. That's how they live. If they don't have oxygen, then they ferment. They feed off sugar in your body.
Sure.
And that causes the cancer. So give it oxygen, take out sugars, voila. So it's the same story with broken bones and all that stuff. It's just giving food to those cells to do what they're supposed to do. Unfortunately, lifestyle here nowadays, it's a very complicated thing, and we don't eat properly, we don't sleep properly. Our lifestyle makes our body exposed to a lot of tension that it's not necessarily designed to do. So oxygen helps it do what it needs to do: recover, enhance performance. In the case of MMA fighters, like you mentioned, two of our sponsorships, Chad and Martin, they come to enhance their performance. The extra oxygen allows them to train better, to get less tired, to resist more, all the smacks and stuff that
Sure.
they get, and obviously once they do get it, to recover from it at a faster pace. Hyperbarics came to be known also through Michael Jackson. That there's pictures of him sleeping in
Sure.
that chamber, and it's precisely for that reason. Helps people sleep, helps people recover, helps people in performance, stress, it has multiple benefits that God designed us to use.
Okay, sure. So oxygen is the simple key then.
Yeah, if you think about it, if I choke you now,
Sure.
within a few seconds you're dead.
Sure.
If you can't live without oxygen. You can live a few days without water, a few days without food, but oxygen would be a couple of seconds, and the proof is that without oxygen you have strokes, you have heart attacks, you have all these other things. That oxygen is the key element in survival.
What sort of regime, if we can put it like that, would guys like Chad and Martin be doing with you guys? How many times a week? And are you able to measure the changes in them from, let's say, from the time they didn't use hyperbaric chambers to now frequently using them?
They are able to measure themselves. If you ask them how they feel pre and post and before they used it and now, in terms of their training and how tired they get and how they will be able to assess that. In general, in our facilities, we don't measure performance. We see it or based on the actual user, customer, or patient, whatever you wanna call it. But in general, depending on which type of chamber you use, there's different protocols that need to be followed. Specifically when using the higher pressure chambers, because of gas intoxication risks and oxygen intoxication risks, etc. In our chamber, that doesn't exist. Again, it's the mild pressure with oxygen enriched air, so it doesn't happen. So in our facilities, the more the merrier. That's what we say. If you wanna come every day, you're more than welcome. But in general, we do 2 to 3 times a week.
Okay. You just mentioned a couple of things here. Would there eventually long-term be risks to that constant exposure to, or like oxygenating your body, let's say like that? You said there was a bit of a...
In general, yes.
Okay.
But not in our facility, because it's oxygen enriched. So it's not even medical grade 100% pure oxygen that we use. We go up to 95% purity, and because of the pressure, there's no risk of intoxicating yourself. And in the hour that you're inside the chamber, it's virtually impossible to have any risks, except obviously the eardrum rupture risk that the pressure can. Okay. So you need to be able to equalize your ears.
Okay, fair enough. So that's how long you'd be in the chamber at a time, is an hour. Do you kind of step it up, or do you just go straight in for an hour?
We do 1 hour. Some patients do up to two hours,
okay.
Depending on the time of.
And what would patients generally do inside there for an hour?
In our chamber, you're allowed to go in with your phone, your laptop, your watch movies, relax. I would say 90% of the people just fall asleep within the first 10 minutes. And obviously Chad and Martin are on Facebook, so and Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff.
Keeping it real inside the chambers.
100%.
One of the, if I can say it, like emerging therapy, something similar that I've seen a lot of lately is ozone therapy. What would be the major difference between a hyperbaric chamber and ozone therapy? From what I understand, ozone therapy is they somehow, whichever way, intravenously or whatever it is, getting ozone gas into your body. What are the major differences between a hyperbaric chamber, for example, and like a ozone therapy sauna? Is there a major difference between the two?
So obviously both of them use oxygen or oxygen derivatives as the basic. The main difference is the pressure, and what that causes is hyperbarics is more like an inside out, so it starts from your breathing.
Okay.
And ozone usually is topical, so whatever it gets, it's either intravenous, but it's not following the nature of the human body, and also the hyperoxia part. So you do have more oxygen, but it's not hyperoxide oxygen.
Okay. Maybe if we just miss it, can we just explain it, that last bit, the hyperoxide?
So hyperoxia, which I explained before, was the extra oxygen and the cells not collapsing, but constraining, being smaller. And ozone usually, ozone is also like those mats that you put on the bathtub that create oxygen. So it's more topical. It comes from your skin inside, rather than from the breathing
process
and with the ozone drips or oxygen drips, it's oxygenated water, let's say, going through your body, but it doesn't create that hyperoxia part that is the extra oxygen through your system.
Okay.
And the other thing that not sure about in terms of ozone and specifically for your audience, hyperbarics is not considered doping, and I don't know
that was coming.
I don't know if oxygen or ozone is or not. I believe some of them are.
Why would people consider hyperbarics doping? Because it's in essence creating a very similar sort of scenario that we would see maybe in cycling, where the guys are, look, I don't know 100% how they would do it, but go up high into Kenya or whatever, be a couple of 1,000 meters above sea level, get highly oxygenated blood, draw that blood out, keep it, and then put it back in. Is that what you're referring to? Like,
Yeah,
really be
but we're not
considered?
changing essentially nothing in the blood. It's just we're enhancing the blood itself, so we're not chemically changing anything. We're doing naturally, and we checked that specifically with Soldier Boy the first time. That was his first question, and there is nothing to worry about.
So safe for all athletes. They're not gonna
Don't worry.
end up on someone's podcast confessing their doping stories.
100%.
One of the bigger things I wanted, obviously, we want to look at MMA fighters, and I find MMA athletes to be the cream of the crop for me personally when it comes to athletes, and that's how we get to sit down and chat to people like yourself, because they actively looking for, I don't want to say constant edges, but tools to use as training and recovery goes. And they often highlight things that you can look at, things like hyperbaric chambers. Like guys use all sorts of weird and wonderful things because their training is so grueling and what they're doing is so grueling all the time. With that being said, who else can benefit from hyperbaric chambers? Obviously, you said everyday people like myself. I mean, I like to think I train quite hard. I might find benefit popping in twice a week, whatever it may be. But who else can we say? What sort of other ailments are you mainly looking at treating in hyperbaric?
So the quick answer and the real answer is everybody.
Sure.
Because everybody, like I said before, cancers, Parkinson's, these are ailments that are happening more and more in the world, and it's because of the lifestyle. So as a preemptive thing, everybody. As a chronic or reactive, let's call it therapy, we see a lot of people with neurological disorders, especially children, ADD, ADHD, cerebral palsy, people with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. You cannot cure it, but you can
Aid it.
People with cancer, people with broken bones, or injuries, open wounds, accidents, stroke victims, drowning victims. We do a lot of sleep apnea, snoring, tinnitus. So it's quite a large spectrum of things. Again, it's the essential of the body.
Sure.
So
one of the studies I ended up reading was hyperbaric chambers and the effects on autism. That was quite a big one. It's obviously, I feel like it's still breaking through. It's kind of breaking through, where it's basically just saying, from what I understood in a nutshell, was kind of just amping up the amount of oxygen that gets carried to the brain, and basically just giving the brain like more stimulation and that kind of thing.
Correct.
Is that something that you guys have dealt with a bit?
Correct. So we've had the honor and privilege of seeing kids that were vegetables when they first started coming to us, and nowadays they're walking, they're talking.
Jeez.
They're a few of them are 2 languages, going to normal schools, and essentially it's that the brain is not receiving the amount of oxygen, or has not received at birth mainly. Some umbilical cord thing or something happened, that a lack of oxygen happened for a few minutes, seconds, or whatever it was, and it does sometimes regenerate to its full capacity. Other times you see improvement. Our worst case was about almost 2 years now. This little girl that literally was born, and you would pick her up and it would collapse. And today she's up and running, and it's beautiful to see that. And it's just because of the extra oxygen. We had a case of a person that was shot in the back and paraplegic, and you can see when he came, twitching of his feet inside the chamber, and that was not something that he was doing consciously, but the regeneration of the oxygen was causing the nerves to react. So that's something that obviously the brain is one of our biggest targets, let's call it.
Sure. And how exactly would that work? Obviously, I mean, I said it's just you. In layman's terms, you're just putting more oxygen into the brain.
That's all you're doing.
But you're not carrying extra nutrients or anything.
You're just regenerating those dead cells that are getting the extra oxygen that the body itself is not giving to that area of the brain.
So it seems so simple. It's very strange, but that's impressive. What about guys like, I don't know if you're familiar with a guy called Wim Hof?
No.
They call him the Iceman, and he basically has set records for going under ice water, literally had to cut out, and his whole thing is that in essence, and everything is oxygen. He's like he claims he can control his entire autoimmune system, his endocrine system. Everything is controlled through his breathing, which in essence would be oxygen. And there was recently, he came out and said that he can 100%, he believes he can control his entire immune system through the use of breath and oxygen, and he has a breathing technique that he teaches and so on. So they injected him with some virus, like not your everyday flu. They stepped it up a little bit more intense than that, and nothing happened. And they said to him, look, okay, well, you're a freak, you're a one of a kind. So he said, fine, give me 30 people. I'll train 15 and not train 15, and we'll see what happens. Obviously, that's a kind of disease that they can give you a cure for straight away. And it came out that all 15 people that he trained managed to fight it off, and all 15 people that he didn't got sick. Mm-hmm. So what about someone like that, for example? They're claiming what you are, they're saying that oxygen is the key. That's all it is. He's doing it through, he's obviously got a breathing technique that he uses, and he can train you how to do it to absorb more oxygen. And that's all it is really. He's teaching you to expand your lung capacity and absorb more oxygen into your body. Whereas the chambers, the way I understand it, is you're using pressure and pure oxygen for your body to absorb more oxygen. Is there benefit to somebody, let's say, that's struggling with an immune system that gets the flu a lot, that gets sick here and there?
100%.
And so on?
So obviously, the more oxygen you get, HyperBaric acts like as a disinfectant, disinflammatory, and immune booster. So 100%. And going back to a little bit of what you were saying, if you think about it, meditation, yoga, even yawning.
Sure.
Why does a human yawn? It's exactly to bring in more oxygen into your system. That's when you wake up and you.
Sure.
So it all works as he claims it is. It's oxygen.
Yeah, it's very simple. But like as you were saying that, I was trying to think about all of the things that he says, because it seems like such a weird thing that everything he does is just breathing. That's what he says. He controls everything through his breath. But in his breathing technique, he's teaching you to expand your lungs and absorb more oxygen. So you kind of see the correlation between the two. What are some good sources for people to maybe go and check out and read up on some hyperbaric chambers?
So obviously our website,
sure,
which is www.hyperbarictherapy.co.za or biobarica.com. I would recommend two books. One is by Dr. Paul Hart. His book is called The Oxygen Revolution, and he's like the top doctor on hyperbarics. And another one is The Oxygen Revolution, the New Health Wave, mild hyperbarics. Those are two great sources to check, and obviously the internet. But obviously you have to be careful what you read, and specifically because there's, like I explained, the three types of chambers. So most of the risks and stuff that you're going to read in online is more geared to higher pressures and higher contents of oxygen rather than what we do. We are really, I would say, new in the market. And also for those that are planning to buy chambers, just be careful what you buy. Make sure that all the proper certificates and all stuff is there.
That's. I'm glad you brought that up, because that seems to be quite a big trend, especially I think guys that are using hyperbaric chambers quite a lot in the States, is that they're actually setting these up in their house, so they've got access to it all the time. What's involved there? How does one go about getting a hyperbaric chamber?
You can do that. You can buy it from us as well, and you can go online and buy from China.
Okay.
You understand? But I would recommend that you just take a look at certain specifications of the chambers, and the main one is how does it pressurize and how does it close. So you will see that most of the chambers close up with a zipper.
Okay.
So eventually the zipper will give in, and those that have like a second type of let's say closing, a way of closing, they latch. So that means that you have to have somebody outside the chamber to close the zipper and latch you
And not forget you in there.
but if you want to come out by yourself, it's impossible. So our system was designed to close with the pressure from the inside. So we've got clients, myself, our other operators, were able to come in and out by ourselves. So we just press the buttons, close the valves, close the door, and we go in and out ourselves. So we don't need anybody else or have somebody else forget about us inside the chamber. So that's very important, and especially with the zipper, if God forbid it opens up in the middle of a session, then your eardrums will rupture. You can become deaf because of the sudden change of pressure. So just keep an eye on what you buy.
And what sort of cost would you be looking at to set something up like that from your guys' side?
So our costs for our chamber, full system with oxygen landed, everything installed, trained, everything, we look about 700,000 rand excluding VAT. But again, it's all certified, all 100% legal, registered, MCCs and everything that we need to have in the country. Or you can go buy for 10,000 rand on Amazon, not Amazon, on Alibaba and bring it in.
That's entirely up to you.
Yeah.
Just give us a bit more details about your practice for those that don't have 700,000 rand or don't want to import dodgy stuff off Alibaba.
So we currently have 3 centers.
Okay.
Our head office is at the Rivonia Medical Center in Rivonia in Johannesburg. Then we've got one at the Wanderers Sports Clinic at the Wanderers Stadium, Bidvest Wanderers Stadium. And we have one in Cape Town. Hopefully soon we will open Durban, Port Elizabeth, Pietermaritzburg. So if somebody is interested in franchise opportunities or stuff, more than welcome to go through our website, drop me an email, and we can.
And that's BioBarica.
BioBarica.com or hyperbarictherapy.co.za.
Okay. And for a casual user to come down, what sort of costs are they expecting to have a couple of sessions with the...
So we have different packages.
Okay.
Usually we do 550 rand per hour.
Okay.
Or
same as like a physio would
physio,
be.
exactly. And we have different packages. So 5,000 rand for 10 sessions, 8,000 for 20 sessions. And we recently launched specifically for people like your audience that need to come all the time.
Sure.
A monthly package that gives them access to up to 30 sessions a month for 3,500 rand. Debit orders, monthly contracts. So obviously subject to availability. You first booking first come first serve, but you have access, and that's basically less than 120 rand an hour.
Okay, sounds like a nice deal.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well there you have it. If anybody's got any questions that they really need to ask you, that I'm sure they can just get a hold of you at BioBarica, send you a message. I'm hoping some people would be interested to try it out. I know I'm definitely going to come down and see how it works and how it's all about. I know, like on a Thursday, it's been a tough week of training, just with that recovery. And check it out online. Rivonia, I always mash the name, but it's Rivonia Medical Sports and Therapy.
So we have one at the Rivonia Medical Sports and Therapy at the Wonders.
Is it listed under the same name as BioBarica at the Wonders?
Yeah. So BioBarica is the international website, so you'll see all of the world's chambers, and our local one is hyperbarictherapy.co.za, and you will see all the locations available there.
100%, Joseph. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
And for shedding some light on that, man. It's
100%, anytime.
Very exciting stuff, and we wish you all the best, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we are out.